Certainly, and they say a week's a long time. Well, the last 24 hours have been a veritable roller coaster.
It was 12 hours was a long time, because that's how long it took for that U-turn.
That was the speediest U-turn I've ever seen in British politics. But, but then it seemed like Liz's fortunes turned round last night with this new poll, although the caveat, of course, is that this YouGov poll, which puts her on 60%, Rishi on 24%, taking out the don't knows, she's on 70% to Rishi's 30%, that poll was conducted before the U-turn. So potentially that might have knocked her chances a little bit. But just to recall what happened yesterday, or indeed the night before this policy was announced, well, part of a broader policy on cutting Whitehall waste was the idea that civil servant pay shouldn't outstrip private sector pay for comparable jobs in different regions, and that was supposed to save a bunch of money. But then the policy went further, saying it could apply to the whole public sector, and that's where you got these attacks from the Labour Party, the TUC, and the Rishi Sunak campaign on nurses, on doctors, on policemen and the like. Yeah,
because to get the money, the 8.8 billion, which was a very specific amount, they could work out that couldn't have just been a small bit, that was extending to everybody.
Yes, and so the contention there, and what the Rishi Sunak campaign did, was divide that 8.8 billion by the number of people in the public sector across the regions outside of London and the South East, and you get about £1,500 per employee that would be taken away. What the Liz Truss campaign then tried to come back with was saying, well, this wouldn't be an immediate thing, this would be a long-term ambition, and we'd do it through differential pay rises. But by that time, when you're explaining, you're losing. And what happened clearly within the Liz Truss camp was they thought, this is just not going to work, we've lost the argument on this, it's too difficult to try and come back to try and explain. Even the idea of differential pay rises over the long term in the future, that does look like we're giving more to the south than the other parts of the country.
And it seems they'd forgotten simple things, like there is also London waiting. There's already more money gets paid in London, so they sort of forgot, it seems to be, about that, as well as they put out a policy which had been put forward many, many times and rejected many, many times. But, as you say, the poll is opening up. Things could be getting interesting.
That's certainly true. There's been now 3 polls of Conservative Party members, 2 from YouGov. Now, YouGov has got a fairly good track record with this. They got it fairly close with Boris Johnson. They got it almost bang on with Jeremy Corbyn, back when people weren't believing the polls, and we saw these big leads for Jeremy Corbyn in 2015 when he was standing to be Labour Party leader. It turned out to be right. YouGov have the most enormous lead for Liz Truss, although a little caveat there that this was before the wobble that she had yesterday. There's another polling company, an Italian polling company, that had Liz Truss on a 5-point lead, so a much narrower lead at the start of this week. That was reported in the Times.
That was a very unusual polling, that, wasn't it? It was supposedly, as I read into it, not done by Team Liz, but they were sharing the information with Team Liz. And you know as well as I do, what do you do if you want to make sure you win? You frequently say the polls are narrowing, because that forces out your voters. So it was very interesting, that poll. Just when you needed to make sure your people vote, you say the gap has narrowed.
Yes, it's interesting. Now, I asked directly the Liz Truss campaign whether or not they commissioned this poll. They said, no, we did not commission this poll. We do not know who commissioned this poll. Also, it's an interesting one, because this Italian company that did it hasn't polled the Conservative Party membership before. I've spoken to pollsters from a number of other companies saying it would be very difficult to do so, because they don't have the tables and the pool of people that they would normally go to. But we can see another poll we're expecting at the start of next week, this time from Opinium, who have polled Conservative members before, comparing the Opinium poll that's coming out, I think, on Monday with the YouGov one from last night. We might get a more clear picture of the direction of travel.
Tom?